and then we'll be there. For those of you that don't know, who are perhaps new to the society, welcome along. You're more than welcome to join us for our virtual meetings, the things we're having to do. We meet as a society every month, and we have a whole range of speakers, ranging from science to history to natural history to literature, a whole range of speakers come along. It's £10 to join us for the whole year, and that gives you access to all of our meetings. We usually get between about 40 and 70 to each of our meetings every month, and Alan's a good friend of the society and has spoken to us on a few occasions, so I'm really grateful for him to join us again this evening. We normally meet at Wombourne Community Centre, which is the library building, but I've got a feeling from now on we'll be broadcasting our meetings as well, even when we can get back together physically, because we are having people now joining us from all around the world as well, and watching our meetings. So I think things are going to change going forwards. So I can see that we've still got people joining us on YouTube, which is great. I think we'll probably get going because we're 17 minutes past 8 now. So welcome along to this rather special evening. You can see we've got 3 guests with us this evening, who I'll introduce in just a moment. The star of the show, though, there, of course, is without doubt, you can see him. He's looking resplendent. No, not Alan. Barney.
Oh, I thought you were on about me, Simon.
Look, we'll come to you in a bit. Right, just before we get going, a few parish notices for you, and for society members. The Facebook page, our Facebook page, do a search on Facebook at Wombourne Scientific Society. That's been updated regularly now, and we're posting on other meetings that other groups are hosting as well that you can join in with. And as well as that, our member John Smith is posting on there astronomy notes as well every month. So what to look for in the night sky, what we can see easily, mostly with the naked eye, and John's doing his snippets on there, so I'm really grateful for John for doing that. If anyone else has got any ideas about what they would like to perhaps post on the Facebook page, do let me know, because anything that's interesting, anything little snippets, let's get it on there and we can keep ourselves together as a community. The Scientific Society Council are now meeting by Zoom every month, so things continue to progress, and we're putting together a programme of talks initially, of course, that are going to be virtual, but also we're working on our programme of talks for next year, although as with everything, it's uncertain the way that's going to operate next year. So for now, the talks are virtually, and we'll try and let you know as far in advance as we possibly can when they're going to take place. They are going to take place on the same night as the usual society meetings, but we're having to swap and change some speakers around. So we will let you know via the society Facebook page when who is going to be speaking at the meeting, although, as I say, the dates will probably stay the same. I think they will stay the same. Now, as well, we had presented to us the accounts which have been sent around to all of you, because, of course, we couldn't do the AGM. So you've all seen the accounts. Sue very kindly got those over to the accountant and the auditor, and they've all been signed off now. So they're all approved and they're all signed off too. Yeah, and I think the rule is, if you can just tell as many people as you possibly can about us, if you can subscribe to us as well here on the Society YouTube channel, that would be great, because then you'll get notified as to when we're going live with broadcasts such as this. And it also helps us as well with YouTube in the search rankings, and it helps us too because it means that we can get a more friendly YouTube web address. So if you can subscribe, that would be absolutely superb. And I think that's just about it. I hope you've been enjoying the sunshine today. Wasn't it glorious? Bit of a difference coming through tonight, though, with an Atlantic storm coming in to the west of Scotland. So that's going to change things over the next few days. But it'll be dramatic, as it always is. I don't know how owls cope with wind. But without further ado, let me introduce Alan Peace to you. And Alan will introduce you to the owls in just a moment. As I say, Alan is a great friend of the society. You'll know, if you've been a member for a while, that Alan has been a few times and spoken to us, and he's always fascinating. Alan's depth of knowledge about his animals and about the various walks that he does, and the amazing amounts of money he raises for charity are endlessly fascinating. But tonight, Alan's going to be talking about the barn owl, Britain's silent killer. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Alan, who's going to introduce us to his owls. And for those of you who don't know Alan, I think this is his cue as well to tell us a little bit about himself and how he comes to have two owls with him tonight. Alan, over to you.
This one, or an embarrassing lead in there and an introduction. Yeah, I became involved with owls, frightens me when I think of it now, actually almost 40 years ago, in 1981, when our local Tame RSPCA inspector brought into the outdoor children's centre that I was the number 2 at, 2 barn owls that had been confiscated by the courts because they'd been taken out of the wild illegally, and the people who'd taken them had got caught, but the birds couldn't be returned to the wild because they didn't know how to hunt. So they had to go somewhere where they could be looked after, and the RSPCA brought them to us at the centre because we had a collection of animals there anyway. Now, it just so happened that we started reading up about the barn owl, working out why it was as it was illegal to actually have them without a licence, certainly to take them out of the wild. And we discovered that the barn owl was in severe danger in this country of dying out, because over a 50-year period, the population had plummeted by something like 80%. And the gentleman who actually worked that out, I'll show you this, a fellow called Tony Warburton, I don't know if that's coming up at all, who's the founder and the president of the World Owl Trust. He carried out the definitive study into the plight of the barn owl, which finished up with a book called The Barn Owl, which was written by Tony Warburton, and a damn good read. I've got to say that, haven't I, as my boss? Now, the 2 birds that the RSPCA brought into us, it turned out they were both female. And we knew that because in the spring, we had a mountain of eggs and both birds trying to incubate them. Now, I'm sure that all the people who are watching this will know that if you've got 2 females and they lay the eggs, it doesn't matter how long they sit on those eggs, they are not going to hatch, because us fellas do come in handy sometimes. And so we couldn't do a lot. But the following year, early 1982, the RSPCA brought us another 2 in. And those 2, as it turned out, were males. Now, the 4 staff at the centre, being intelligent, we pulled all our 8 grey cells, and we worked out that, or we thought, that if we took one female and put it with one male, and another female and put it with the other male, wonder what would happen. And there's no prizes for guessing. I'm hoping it's all adults watching tonight, because the barn owl is one of the randiest birds you'll ever come across. In the breeding season, they're literally at it every 2 minutes. And in 1983, we actually reared our first brood of captive bred barn owls as part of then what was called the British Owl Breeding and Release Scheme, where barn owls were being bred in captivity for subsequent release into the wild to replenish the wild stocks where it was suitable. And obviously one of the biggest problems that was causing the demise of the barn owl was habitat loss. So if the habitat wasn't there, then there was no point in releasing the birds. But since then, I mean, I've personally bred 30 and released at 3 different sites where there are now viable populations where there weren't any before. Now, the barn owl is actually one of 5 indigenous owl species that you can find in the UK. The barn owl, you might be able to see another one sitting behind me here. Indy, who's a British long-eared owl, and the long-eared owl is the scarcest of the 5 British owl species. The other ones, you've got the tawny owl, which is the typical British twit-twoo, although when you hear the twit and the twoo, it's actually the males and the females talking to each other. That's how they communicate. You have a short-eared owl, similar to the long-eared owl, a little bit more dumpy, and you have a little owl. You also have very, very rarely in the Shetlands and sometimes in the Cairngorms in northern Scotland, you may find snowy owls, the famous Harry Potter owl. But that is very much a rarity. They're not generally found in this country. And we also now have a small population of European eagle owls up in a location in the Forest of Bowland that we help monitor the site up there. Where the pair have come from, we do not know. Most logically, somebody had them as pets and decided to release them. But they're such a big, powerful bird, and there's so many rabbits around the Forest of Bowland, they're not having any problem at all, and they've successfully bred for the last 3 years. So they may well go back onto the British list of birds, although they became extinct in this country some 300 years ago. Now, the barn owl, Bill, this is sort of the silent killer. These are the pinnacle of a predatory bird. Their flight is absolutely silent. The BBC did a fascinating film about 4 or 5 years ago where they actually filmed a barn owl flying in front of very sensitive microphones, and the sound line was flat. There was no noise whatsoever because they are designed for absolutely silent flight. It looks quite a fair-sized bird. Coming a bit closer. Oh, now we can see himself in the in the laptop. It's good, but it's actually nearly all feathers. If you were to pluck him, you wouldn't have enough meat to make an owl burger. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put my finger in the back of his neck. You watch how far my finger goes in. Okay, and the same underneath his tummy here. Again, is actually quite a small bird. This is a cast of a barn owl skull. And you look at this and you compare it to the bird, and well, hang on, that's out of all proportion. They're actually quite a small brain bird. Owls have the image of being intelligent. They're not absolutely thick. They're as thick as 2 short planks. But what they do have to enable them to kill very, very efficiently and silently are those superb wings, which when he opens them out, his wingspan is approximately 1 meter across. And if he flew over your heads, then you would not hear him. There's for several reasons. One, the feathers are incredibly soft, and they're actually covered with a very, very fine down on the top. They're also shaped like an aerofoil, so they get maximum lift for minimum flap. And the leading edge of the primary feathers there is actually barbed, which helps to break up the air currents. So as the air is flowing over his wings, there's no wind noise at all. His main, his main weapon, but the main hunting technique is with the ears. Whilst owls do have very, very good eyesight, it's actually the ears, and the ears are tucked in behind that ring of feathers there around his face, which acts like a television receiver dish and channels the sound into the ears. But they're very peculiar because the right ear is above the right eye and is angled very slightly downwards. The left ear is below the left eye, is bigger than the right ear, and is angled very slightly upwards. And there's microseconds of time difference of the sound of a mouse scurrying around on the floor going into his ears. And that is enough for the bird to decide exactly, just like that, exactly where the sound is coming from. And then he can swoop down with that silent flight. By the time the mouse or the vole, which is their main prey, realise that there's something coming for them, it's generally too late. And again, an owl's talons are very, very sharp. I'm going to try, I don't know how clearly you're about to see this. This is actually the right leg of a barn owl, or the right foot, 4 needle sharp talons. And something very peculiar that you only find on barn owls. I'll just put him back on on there for a minute. It's a little bit awkward trying to do it with looking around there like looking at a horse. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. These talons are perfectly smooth, except for one side of one talon, where my finger is there, which is the right leg. And on the left-hand side of that second talon, it's actually it's rough, just on that one side. If this was a left leg, the roughness would be on the right-hand side. It has a very particular purpose. You only find it on bonels. What it does, it acts like a comb. So when the bird is preening its feathers, it can use that comb to help make them lie perfectly smooth. Because if they're not lying perfectly smooth and absolutely pristine, then there will be wind noise when the bird flies, and the species will hear him and scurry off. But any mouse or vole that gets caught in those talons is dead very, very quickly. Okay, the insides of the pads there are quite rough as well, which helps him to hold on to the prey. Now, one thing that children quite often ask is, what do owls eat? Obviously, most owls in the wild eat shrews, mice, small rodents. In captivity, it's the unpleasant bit, they're fed on these day-old cockerels that we buy. I buy 20,000 of these at a time. As the World Owl Trust, we actually hold 180 owls of 52 different species. Everything from the smallest in the world, which is actually a little bit smaller, or just about the same size as this day-old cockerel, to the biggest in the world, which is the European eagle owl, which has a 2-meter wingspan, and everything in between. Some of our birds, we hold hundreds of species in captivity in the world. And what the Owl Trust does, as it says on the board at the back of me there, we actually are a Noah's Ark for owls. We're a safety net. We don't, we're not a falconry centre. We don't sell owls. We've never sold an owl. Or we don't do posh flying displays. Most of our work is education and conservation. And if we breed endangered owls, they go either for release in the countries where they may be, or they'll go to other collections to widen the gene pool. One of our greatest successes, in actual fact, is this one, Philippine eagle owl. As the name suggests, it's only found in the Philippines. And a quarter of a century ago, that particular species of owl was down to approximately 200 birds, which is like that far from extinction. We sponsored in full cooperation with the Philippine government and the conservationists over there. We sponsored and began a captive breeding program allied to habitat restoration. Again, was the biggest single problem. And the population count last year, which obviously is the latest one we've got so far, the population was reckoned to be almost 390. We've almost doubled the population, but that's taken 25 years to achieve that. It's a long, slow process. But if we hadn't have done that, that species of owl would never be extinct. Simple as that. And as harsh as that. And you don't come back from extinction. You've gone, you've gone, and that's the end of the story. Now, say our founder, Tony Warburton, who began this British owl breeding and release scheme, he was the one who identified the problem with the barn owl in particular. But it was realised that many different species of owls had problems all around the world. And eventually we morphed into the World Owl Trust. I first met him in 18. He's the owl guru, and what he doesn't know about owls is not worth knowing. And I've been allied to ever since when Debbie and I got married. The other bird that we've got up here, this one who's sort of dozing off, bring him a bit closer. So this is Indy, who is a British long-eared owl, and it's pretty obvious why it's called the long-eared owl. Come here. Come on. All right. Come on. See? There you go. All right. That's better. He's got him down a little bit at the moment. Now they're coming up now. See those tufts on the top of his head? That's why it's called a long-eared owl. And if he turns and faces the look, you may see the difference in the eyes of this one to the barn owl. You look this way. Yeah, you possibly see there now, he has an orange ring around his eyes. That tells us that this particular species of owl is what's regarded or called a crepuscular owl, which means it primarily comes out at dawn and dusk. You see a bird with bright yellow eyes, it tells you it's a diurnal bird. And if you see one with dark eyes, like barn owl Barney there, that tells you that it's primarily a nocturnal bird, comes out at night. It's not a completely infallible guide, but it's just a generality to give us an idea. Well, it's called a long-eared owl because of those feather tufts, although they've got nothing at all to do with their ears. To us, they simply indicate the mood of the bird. If his ear tufts are up like that, then it means he's quite happy, he's quite relaxed. He's a woodland bird, which is why he's sort of camouflaged a little bit, because bigger birds than him would catch him and eat him. He's quite small. But his ears, exactly as I took him behind that face disc to enable him to sort of hunt by sound as much as by sight. Back up. All right. You want there. Now going back to the barn owl, which is the prime reason for tonight. We mentioned about their eyes and some very peculiar eyes. They are fixed in a socket. They can't move their eyes in the same way as we can in order to look up and down or left to right. But what they can do that we can't is they can orientate their head horizontally through 270 degrees, 3/4 of a circle. That way, they can orientate the head 180 degrees, so they can get it right upside down, and they can also tip the head right over backwards. If you try and do any of those things, at the very least, you can have a bit of a stiff neck. But they have to be able to do that because their eyes are fixed in the sockets. In order to locate their prey, all they need to do that is sit perfectly still. If they're in a barn, for example, if they're in a barn, they just sit up in the rafters, just listen and watch. And by orientating their head all the way around virtually, they don't need to shuffle around and make a noise. If they do spot anything, then they can swoop down and grab it. There's two different hunting techniques. There's one that's more of a perch and bounce, where they literally just perch, and then when they see something, they just bounce on it. Another one they call glide and grab, where they appear to float like a giant silent white moth, only about 6 or 8 feet off the ground. And all they do is just a couple of gentle wing beats, and then they'll glide again completely silently. And to me, there's nothing more beautiful than the sight of a barn owl working a field edge at night or in late evening, because obviously in the summer, then there aren't enough hours of darkness for them. They have to come out in the daytime. I was fortunate enough to spend a week at the Minsmere RSPB reserve over in Suffolk last year, and spent every night watching a barn owl hunting, which was great. And in the space of 20 minutes, we watched him make 3 successful short-tail vole kills and take the prey straight back to the barn where he was evidently got youngsters. That's something else. With only the female, incubates the eggs, and it takes approximately 33 days for the barn owl egg to hatch. Now, again, they have a strange hatching system. They have what's called an asymmetric hatch, where the female lays an egg and immediately starts to incubate. 2 days later, she'll lay a second egg and carry on incubating, and so on, until she's got however many eggs she wants to have. That is dictated to by the availability of food. If food is in short supply, then they might only lay 2 or 3 eggs. If there's plenty of bowls around, then they may lay anything up to 10 or even 11, which is the highest number ever recorded. Now, that obviously means that since each egg takes 33 days, the first egg is going to hatch 2 days before the second one, that 2 days before the third one, and so on. And if while the female is incubating, she doesn't come off the nest. She stays there all the time. And so a barn owl nest is the most revolting place you could ever possibly go to. It really does stink to high. So the poor old male bird, he has to go out and catch all the food for himself, for the female, and also for the owlets when they start to hatch. And if they've got, say, 6 youngsters, he will have to catch something in the region of 2,000 prey items in order to feed them all. Now, if food was in short supply and he had only managed to catch, say, enough to feed 3 of the birds, and they did what we might do, which is share it out between everybody, all that would happen is they would all die. So what happens in reality is only the biggest and the strongest get fed. The smallest ones, the little weak ones, unfortunately, they get eaten. Cannibalism is rife with owls. I've had them even in captivity when we've put in food wholesale, and we've still had cannibalism take place where the elder owlets have eaten their younger siblings. Because they're hungry, it's just instinctive. It's nature. Nature is not a soft, fluffy place. It's a very hard, cruel world out there. Barney in particular, Indy is one of our own birds that we bred and has been reared as a lecture bird. We've got 5 lecture birds altogether. But Barney is not one of our own birds. He's actually a rescue bird. He is 8 years old, and he has a unique identification number ring around his left leg there. And I picked him up starving 4 years ago on Gospel Inn Golf Course, not a million miles away from here. And the registered owner, when he was contacted by the Central Bird Register, he told them some cock and bull story about it sold the bird to somebody in Wales, but it's not a homing pigeon. It hadn't flown back from Wales to a point a mile from where it was registered as living. So the Central Register didn't want the bird to go back to him. They asked us to keep it, and it was re-registered to the World Owl Trust. But it is lost because he's a stunning bird and he's so friendly. He's probably the friendliest barn owl I've ever had. He doesn't have an ounce of malice in him. Gavin Williamson, our MP, he's one of the patrons for the World Owl Trust, and we've actually got pictures of Barney sitting on Gavin's bare hand because he doesn't use his talons at all. I mean, I'm wearing a falconry glove here just for comfort, because even though he doesn't use them, they're still very sharp, to say the least. But he will live until in captivity. All being well, he should make 20. In the wild, most barn owls die in the first year because they have to learn how to hunt. And one of the things with them, they've got no body fat to exist on. They can only survive at the very most a week. At the end of a week, they are dead from starvation. They have to eat almost every day. But one of the biggest problems for the barn owl is the fact that their feathers are not waterproof. So if you get prolonged periods of wet weather, they can't hunt because they can't fly. The feathers become waterlogged. Quite a fair number of barn owls will drown in cattle troughs. They'll go into a cattle trough to have a bath, get waterlogged and can't get out again. The remedy for that obviously is very, very simple, because all it needs is a simple ramp putting in a water trough. So any birds like that can walk out without any problem. I mentioned at the start that these birds were in danger of dying out. And the main reasons: one, habitat loss, hedgerows being grubbed out, and so to make bigger fields, so it's more efficient for bigger farming machinery. The use of pesticides, getting into the food chain, where obviously the farmers spray the crops with pesticides, then along come the mice and the voles and the rats and eat some of the crops that the farmer has sprayed. They take the poison in. Then along comes the barn owl and eats the mouse that has eaten the crops that's got poison on it. And the poison builds up in the barn owl system. And one of two things generally seems to happen. It either renders the birds infertile, or it causes a calcium deficiency, so that any eggs that they lay are so thin shelled that they crack, or they have no shells at all. They do need the calcium to enable them to make eggshells. Some get shot, might be illegal, but it'll happen. Some will get hit by cars. In this day and age, again, that's a major cause of mortality with barn owls, because of the way they hunt, because they fly so low. And again, I said at the outset, whilst they are owls are supposedly intelligent, they're pretty thick. Most birds, when they take off, if they're on a perch somewhere and they take off, they'll fly upwards. Not a barn owl. If he's perched on, say, a fence post on the side of a road, and a car comes along, instead of flying up, what they invariably do is go down and then up. And they're such a light bird that just the slipstream off a car is enough to dash them down onto the road. And because their skeletons are hollow, quite delicate, so they can't stand being bashed on the road. And it doesn't actually even need the first car to hit them. It's the second car that would actually kill them. Here's actually a picture of the barn owl skeleton. Again, I don't know what it's showing, but you see they're nearly all legs as well. The body is quite small, only about 4 inches long. The body. Cool. Now, going back to the historical bit, like 1981, the first ones, I've been very fortunate over the last 40 years to be able to watch these birds in the wild. And as I said, there's nothing more beautiful. Very ever fortunate enough to see one flying in the wild. And I hated the thought of my grandkids growing up and not being able to see sites like that, which is why I became heavily involved in owls. The sort of things that I'm going to put a sales plug in now, sort of things that you can do if you'll be concerned about birds like this dying out. And again, the Royal Owl Trust, we don't actually breed barn owls at this point in time because the population is stable in this country, so we don't need to. And there are more barn owls in captivity than there are out in the wild anyway. So we don't need to at this point in time, but we're still there as the safety net. But all it needs is a prolonged wet winter, and we will get phone calls from people saying they found a starving barn owl. We will get dozens of them because we do act as rescue centres as well as sort of breeding centres. And say if you're concerned about that possibility of beautiful birds like this dying out, you can join the Royal Owl Trust. All right, you can become a member. You can adopt an owl. Any ones of our 180 birds, 52 species. There's something like 208 different species of owl around the world. We hold 52 of them, so we've got a quarter of the world species population. And if you join as a member, you get a nice magazine periodically that comes out, gets sent to members, all about owls. The picture on this cover is actually of a spectacle owl. Our spectacle owls at the moment are down at Bird World at Farnham in Surrey, because various centres are holding birds for us, because our old centre, which is up in Cumbria, we had to vacate the premises there, unfortunately, and we're in the process of establishing a new centre. But while we get that done, the collection is held at various places around the country. Some of them, which when it's open you can actually see them, are up at Penkridge. I've got 40 of the Owl Trust birds up there at Rodbaston Agricultural College, where they're used as a teaching aid as much as anything. And at the moment up there, we've got 3-week-old African spotted eagle owl owlets. I've got Tengmarm's owls, which are very small ones, on eggs. We've got Pharaoh's eagle owls that are on eggs, but we don't know yet if they're fertile or not. Our Pharaohs, obviously, are a desert owl. They're given to us by a sheikh from Saudi Arabia as well. And the World Owl Trust, because of our reputation, there's a magazine published in America called Owl Eye, and the editor actually came over from Chicago a couple of years ago to see our birds because of our reputation. And when she went back to Chicago, the next issue of this very flashy colour magazine had got 7 pages devoted to the work of the World Owl Trust. Publicity like that we couldn't buy. We couldn't afford to. We're a charity. We don't get any sort of funding from anywhere other than what we can raise, either by lectures, by sales stuff out of our. We sell loads of owly stuff in our online shop, and also we've got a small shop at the offices up in Bootle in Cumbria. With what we can raise, by going out to schools and the like. But of course, all that at this point in time is all on hold. But we still have to feed all the owls. So we've got an appeal out at the moment to try and raise £5,000, which is what it costs us to feed all the birds for a year. I mean, the birds will be fed one way or another, but if you feel like helping in that, all you need to do is go on to if you go on to owls.org, it will bring up all of our web pages and everything else. And if you go on to justgiving.com and again just type in World Owl Trust, it will bring up that particular campaign on there as well. I think also Simon is putting it on online or whatever with this. Now I don't know if Simon's going to any questions have come in yet at all.
Alan, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. What I've done is I've put the link up in the YouTube chat box, so that's there now, and you've got a link there which goes to the World Owl Trust site, and you've got a link for the Just Giving page as well that Alan's just mentioned. So please do go and donate there. And of course you can gift aid as well through Just Giving, which means that we add extra onto the donation too. Basically the government give the tax back that you've paid elsewhere. So please tick the box for gift aid. Yeah, I've got a few questions coming. I've had a couple by email as well, Alan. Firstly, what speed do owls fly at? That's a question I've got here. What speed do barn owls fly at?
Very slowly. They're not a fast bird. You could run faster than a barn owl flies. So you're probably talking maybe 10 miles an hour if they're actually going from A to B. But they don't fly fast. They float almost literally. They'll just do a couple of gentle wing beats and then they'll glide very gently. And then another couple of very gentle, I think, a couple of gentle wing beats and they'll glide, because they're looking and listening for food. So they don't want to be flapping and making any noise, because they need to hear their prey. and also to see it as well. So they fly very slowly.
And is that true for all owls, or just the barn owl? Do all owls just fly
all
slowly?
owls would be basically the same, but the barn owl is the pinnacle. He's the absolute top-notch one in terms of silent flight, and probably the slowest flyer as well, because of the way that they hunt.
Wow. Okay, now our esteemed secretary, Alan Stevens, has asked, do owls take shrews, despite shrews being toxic?
They would take them, but that would be very, very unusual, because whether there's something that's like built into their psyche or whatever, that they know that they could be toxic, you're bound to get the odd one that will take one. But generally, yes, Alan would be quite right. They wouldn't normally bother with shrews. Same way as foxes won't normally eat shrews, or they don't like moles either, as well.
Oh right, so they'll know then, so they'll spit them out.
Yeah, they should, certainly they should do. The odd one might take them, but that would be a rarity.
Wow.
Mention their sort of foxes and moles. I mean, when I used to do mole trapping, the number of times I had foxes pull mole traps with a mole in out, and they carry it off, but then they just leave it. They didn't bother eating it. Whether what the taste is with that, I don't know.
Wow. And will Barney take anything else? I mean, obviously he's in captivity, so well, can he still hunt? Can he still do it?
Yeah. Now this is an interesting one for me as well. He's captive bred. He was bred in Walsall in 2012. I know what his parentage was. He's been hand reared, and in theory, captive bred barn owls don't know how to hunt. He hasn't read that book, because I know that in his flight here at home, bearing in mind the fact that both of these birds are fed, so they don't have to hunt. We get the occasional sparrow will go in, or whatever, robins will go into their flight. They just sit there and look at them. But I went into his flight one morning, and there was a sparrow's head on his feed board. So he'd evidently caught that and eaten it. I was going up to a show up at Cannock last year, and as he always does, if we're going off to a show, when owls eat their prey, they eat all of it. Bones, claws, feathers, fur, everything goes down. Inside the bird's stomach, the juices strip all the meat off and leave behind the indigestible parts, bones, feather stubs, and roughly 12 hours after they've eaten, they will regurgitate a pellet with all the indigestible remains in. And I got to this show at Cannock, and as he always does, he cast a pellet in his carrying box. And I thought that pellet was a bit unusual, because it was almost black. And his pellets normally, because of what they are fed, are usually a buff colour. So I dissected it in front of people at the show, and inside it was a mouse's skull. So at some time during the night, a suicidal mouse had gone into his flight, and he'd had it. It got to be a pretty stupid mouse, but nevertheless, he decided to have it. One that did upset me with him, again, I went into his flight one morning. I always go into him first thing in the morning, and on his feed table was a pair of frog's legs, back legs of a frog. That upset me, because it was the only frog we'd got in our garden. And frogs are quite useful, and he'd eaten it. I was not very pleased with him that day. But in theory, he doesn't know how to hunt. But wow. He wouldn't survive. He wouldn't survive in the wild. And so when I found him, he'd been out for about 5 days and was absolutely ravenous, because he didn't have the technique to hunt in the wild. Hunting something that comes into his flight, into his aviary, that's a different matter. It's almost being served up on a plate.
So he's still got it then. He's still got the knack by the sound of it.
Instinct to jump on things that move. Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I mean, this is probably well, it is a stupid question, and I know what the answer is going to be. So don't tell me off. I'm just posing this to you. Do owls make good pets?
Very short answer, no. And it's not a stupid question at all, Simon, far from it. Well, again, I showed these at the start. Hedwig. Anybody know? I don't know if any of the, see if anybody can answer. Like one of the Hedwigs, Snowy Owl of Harry Potter fame, where one of the Hedwigs actually live. That's a question for people there. The others that they had, Pidgewiggin, the little white-faced owl. We've got a pair of white-faced owls that are an African species, but we've never managed to breed them yet. But again, people see birds like this. Diddle day. Yeah, great grey, stunning birds, great greys, absolutely stunning, and particularly when they do things like that. That's a great grey owl hunting lemmings through snow, 1/2 metre deep, just by sound alone. Their hearing is so acute, they can tell exactly where a lemming is underneath the snow. But when the Harry Potter films came out, we started getting umpteen phone calls saying, oh, we've seen the Harry Potter films, and oh, we'd love to have an owl as a pet. Can we buy one off you? No. First of all, we don't sell owls anyway. We've never sold an owl. And we strongly discourage people from even thinking of having an owl as a pet, because they are noisy, they are messy, they are smelly, they don't give you any love. I know he might perch on the shoulder, but not everybody fancies the thought of having things like this, dead bale chickens and dead mice and dead rats in the freezer. That's the reality that you have to do. But whilst they're beautiful birds, but that's things to hopefully see in the wild. They really do make terrible, terrible pets. As I say, they don't give you any love and affection or anything like that at all. So it certainly wasn't a stupid question, Simon.
Okay. And you certainly can't take them for a walk.
No.
So forget it. Oh dear.
Now, I don't know if, yes, what I suspect here now, I will leave it to everybody's imagination what he's actually trying to do. He's a male bird, and the top of my head to him, because I'm his mate, is a female. So, and believe you me, if you've seen the talons, it gives an all new perspective to the old saying, "I'm not tonight, I've got a headache," because they ain't half sharp on the top of your head. So,
absolutely, yeah. And you've managed to retain quite a lot of hair there, despite the talons as well.
I'm not doing bad, am I?
I'm very impressed. Now, before we finish, and it really has been a great evening. Thank you so much, and thank you, all three of you. There's an eagle owl on the loose in Wombourne at the moment, isn't there? Yeah. So there's been a few reports. I've seen it on Facebook. People have seen it, and people have tried to get it. I guess the question is, whereabouts do you think it is now, and what should people do if they see it? Right.
Yeah, I actually spoke with Carl, the owner, yesterday about it. The bird is still out. It was the last time it was seen. It was on the railway walk. So he's staying in the area because the bird only comes from Lower Gornal. Anyway, he's staying in the area. If anybody sees it and it's on the floor, if they can drop a coat, a blanket, a towel, anything like that over the top of it, I would suggest they don't try and grab hold of it, because again, an eagle owl talons are as big as your hand, and they have the strongest power grip of any, certainly of any bird at all. The pressure they can exert is absolutely phenomenal, and you don't want to be gripped on by an eagle owl's talons. And then call the owner. Diddle-diddle-day. Boom, boom, boom. I thought I'd written his number down here, but I haven't. Or they could always
Yeah,
call me.
Alan, probably best not to give his number out.
Yeah, he doesn't mind having his number out, but I haven't got
Right.
it here anyway. Because he wants the bird back. But every time he goes, it's moved, and unless you know exactly where the bird is, it can be very difficult to spot because they're brown, they're camouflaged. The best indication of where it is, you may hear all the small birds, they find it, same as they do with the tawny owl in the woods. If they will mob it, they'll harass it and try and drive it away. Which that's how I got called to it 3 weeks ago now, when he was off Sitch Lane. And if you didn't know the bird was up in the tree that he was in, you wouldn't have found him, you wouldn't have seen him, because he blended in so perfectly. But yeah, drop a coat over and then call us, and we'll come out. I can always come out and fetch it.
Okay, so yeah, what we'll do is we'll put I think the number onto the society Facebook page. So if people do see it, all you've got to do is go to the Facebook page, do the search for Wombourne Scientific Society, and we'll put it on.
Okay.
We'll put the link on there. Alan, it's been a fascinating evening, as it always is with you. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us. I've put the links up on the YouTube chat as well, to the World Owl Trust and the Just Giving page, and I'll put those links in the replay as well.
Yep.
So if people are watching this on the replay, that will show down below on the YouTube broadcast, and the replay is normally available an hour or so after we stop this evening, so that will be available for you on there very, very shortly. You can watch to your heart's content, and please do spread the word about the Scientific Society, about Wombourne Scientific Society, and about this talk, so as many people can enjoy it and watch it as possible. Alan, Barney, and I didn't catch the name.
Indy.
Brilliant. Okay, so thank you to Alan, Barney, and Indy. Indy sits there so placid compared to Barney, quite happy to allow Barney to be the star. Listen, thank you so much, Alan. I'll let you get inside and grab a cuppa or perhaps a glass of something stronger. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for being a friend of the society, and stay fit and healthy, won't you? And thank you. Thank you. Yeah, cheers, Alan. Thank you very much indeed. And to everybody else, our next meeting is on the 18th of June. We'll confirm the speaker with you via the Facebook page. If you subscribe to us on YouTube, then you'll get notified when we're going live there as well. So thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you again to Alan, Barney, and Indy, and we look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Thanks again. Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. So we'll leave on the snack, on Barney just having his evening snack. He's been very good, hasn't he? He's sat there very patient while that food was there. Let's just watch and see what happens.
Because this is not his normal location, he's more interested in what's going on around him, you know, so than actually eating his supper. So
is he going to hold on to it for a bit? Yeah. All that he let you have it, Dad. No.
All right.
Wow, brilliant. All right, listen, Alan, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for joining us. Thanks, Alan, Barney, and Indy, and we'll see you on the 18th of June. And thank you, Barney. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Good night. Stay healthy.